joined in, fantastic. I joined in 1981. And I had done a philosophy and politics degree in the Bristol University before I joined, and I was working, and then I joined. I did Sankirtan for around 4 years before I was. This thing is in the middle of my thing. I was wondering if I can just. Oh yeah, it's gone now. Yeah, so I joined. I was doing Sankirtan as a brahmachari for around 4 years, and then my Guru Maharaj at the time, who's now left, introduced me to my husband, Krishna Dharma Prabhu, and we went up together to a place in England called Manchester. I don't know how familiar you are with English cities, but it's a big university town in Manchester. So we went there. We were there for 16 years. We started a center there, which is still going on. We have 3 children. During that time in Manchester, my husband started writing books like Mahabharata, Ramayana, which you may or may not be familiar with. And I also went through a very difficult time during those, towards the end of those 16 years, because when I had 3 children and my husband was the temple president and he was also national secretary, so he was always away, and I was left with the 3 children, I began to really struggle with my sadhana. So the more I struggled with my sadhana, the weaker my sadhana got. I began actually going into a depression, and I began losing my faith in Krishna consciousness. And when my husband noticed this, that I was just losing my faith and I was becoming very depressed, he completely changed his priorities. Prior to that, he was always with the brahmacharis and, traveling to London for this or for that meeting. And he realized that if his ashram collapses and he's got 3 children, then what is the use of everything he's doing, because we're all going to struggle. So he completely changed his priorities and began prioritizing. He would always make sure I was listening to Prabhupada lectures. I'd be cooking or house doing whatever I was doing. He'd just come in and put a Prabhupada lecture on. And most of the time I wasn't listening. My mind, what, I mean, you may not know what it's like, but sometimes if we have problems or worries, our minds are distracted. So that's what it was like for me. But occasionally, something Prabhupada said would penetrate my distraction, and it'd be like, oh. And it's those little tidbits that really began changing our lives. Though I was losing my faith, I had 3 children and a husband who were in Krishna consciousness. So I didn't want to ruin our family and ruin our lives, basically, my children's lives. So at that time, I heard one lecture, many of the lectures, but I would only hear one thing from it, something that really impacted me. So I heard Prabhupada saying in this one lecture, he's talking about the verse, Satam prasangam mamavira samvido bhavanti hitkana rasayana kata. How many of you are familiar with that verse? Just so I know. It's from the Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, Text 25. I don't know a lot of verses, but I know that verse because it's a very important verse in my life. So Prabhupada's talking about that verse, and then he says, so now you have heard, now what? Now you have got intelligence. Don't accept blindly. You should ask, do I agree with Swamiji or don't I agree? And if I don't agree, why don't I agree? And if I do agree, why do I agree? He said, you will see if you discuss like this, gradually you will begin to feel. Now, that was the first time in my experience in ISKCON that I had been heard from anybody that I was allowed to challenge what Prabhupada said. I was allowed to say, I don't agree. I had done philosophy at university before I joined, so I have a very philosophical mind. I'm not very practical, but I'm very philosophical. And so I would ask a lot of philosophical questions, but the devotees would always say to me, don't be over intelligent. Don't be over intelligent. Just do as you're told. Just do as you're told. Work. So in order to please the devotees, I had to try to shut down my inquisitive nature and my doubting nature. But listening to this lecture, Prabhupada said, no, don't shut it down. You have intelligence. Ask, do I agree? Don't I agree? And even if you don't agree, that's okay. Discuss it, why you don't agree. And he said, gradually you will see, you will begin to feel. So I told this to my husband. I said, maybe we should discuss and we began doing that. And for the first like 4 or 5 years of our discussions, all the time, my husband kept putting Prabhupada lectures on for me. Would you like me to pause while you greet anybody? I see pictures coming up. Would you like me to pause for a while, or should I carry on?
No, this is fine.
Okay. So, yes. So we were carried on. He kept putting Prabhupada lectures on for me because my faith still wasn't so strong. It was just beginning. But we began trying to discuss Bhagavad Gita. And for the first few years, when I was discussing Bhagavad Gita, I would get furious because I read things in Bhagavad Gita that over my first 5 years as a devotee, or 11 years as a devotee, I'd been a devotee for 11 years now at that time. No, I'd been a devotee for 15 years, beg your pardon. I'd been a devotee for 15 years. So during that time, some of the things that Prabhupada writes in the Gita had really been used in a way which was very painful and hurtful. Things like never trust a woman, women are less intelligent. All those quotes about women had been used in a way which was actually very hurtful. So I was reading these now, and I'd be like, when discussing with my husband, I'd say, this is just such a violent statement. How can you accept such a violent religion? He said, oh, calm down. Let's discuss. I'm talking a lot, and one of the things I hate doing is just talking and talking and talking. So is anyone following me? Is everyone okay with what I'm saying so far? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So one of the things we realized through this, I want to cite another verse for you from the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam again, chapter 29, text 8, verses 8 to 10. They talk about how we can do all the angas of bhakti in 3 modes of nature. We can do them in the mode of goodness, we can do them in the mode of passion, we can do them in the mode of ignorance. So when we hear in the mode of ignorance, we take what the Bhagavatam or the Gita is saying, and we filter it through our ignorance. And you can please go onto your Bhagavatams right now. If you can get your Bhagavatam up onto your device, don't take my word for anything. Always go to the quote. So this is Canto 3, chapter 29, text 8, talks about devotional service in the mode of ignorance. And the mode of ignorance, our filter is we're very angry, we're very envious, we're very hateful. So if we have a tendency to be racist, we will read Prabhupada's books through the filter of our racism. If we have a tendency to be a little misogynistic, we will read the Bhagavatam and Gita to confirm the misogynism. So in the filter in the mode of passion, in 3:29:9, it talks about the filter in the mode of passion. Mode of passion, we want power, we want prestige, we want wealth, we want to be recognized. So we can read the same verses through the mode of passion, and we will filter it to justify that my own sense of self-importance. Or we can read things through the mode of goodness, and the filter of the mode of goodness is how can I purify myself? Now, the reason I told you this is as me and my husband began reading these passages and discussing these passages that would make me very angry, because the devotees in my experience had generally read these passages through the filter of the mode of ignorance or through the mode of passion, and used these passages in a way which was very painful to others. When we began discussing, I began realizing that no, it doesn't have to be understood like that. It can be understood through the filter of the mode of goodness, and then it's not so violent. So gradually, my anger diffused. So I don't want to be the one who's just talking. I was hoping we would have a conversation. Should I tell you a little bit more, or would you like us to? I'll tell you a little bit more. This is one of my friends. I'll tell you a little bit more. So another thing we were experiencing for the first 5 years was not only was I getting angry at passages that I had been used to hurt me in the past, but me and my husband had a lot of bad discussion habits. In fact, these are discussion habits that many people have. We wouldn't hear each other. We talk at each other. And when we disagreed with each other, we'd argue with each other. There is a lot of background noise. I just let you know. Can anyone else hear it, or is it just me? Can hear some nice scratching?
Yes, I can.
I don't know if whoever's got some. Hare Krishna. So we'd have a lot of bad discussion habits, and you can tell me if any of you have these similar bad discussions. We would often, one of those is talking. If the other one didn't agree, we'd make faces like, oh no, or we'd look away. That's not right, you know, or we would talk at each other. We wouldn't actually hear the other one. So we often ended up feeling misunderstood. We would speculate, and we'd come up with, where are you getting that from? That's just your opinion, you know. So we had a lot of bad discussion habits. Have any of you experienced uncomfortable discussions where you just feel this discussion is not getting me anywhere? You're talking about maybe an issue in the temple or at home with your spouse or with your children. You're just kind of like talking at each other and there's no real resolution. Does anyone have that experience, or is it just us? Can I have a show of hands if you've actually had that experience? Yes, so we do have these bad discussion habits, and we were having them, and they were making our Shastra discussion, our Gita discussion, very unpleasant. It got to the point where though we knew I needed to discuss Gita to get my faith back, we hated this talking together. In fact, in everything we were arguing all the time, and we just began to get to the point we didn't like to talk to each other. So luckily, my kind husband kept putting Prabhupada lectures on all the time. Just we'd have them on in the background the whole time. And we began hearing little snippets from Prabhupada about, and that might help us to improve how we talk to each other. All these things that we heard from Prabhupada, I now have on our website, Improving Our Sadhu Sanga. So one of us would hear something, would come to the other and say, well, you know, Prabhupada said we should do like this. Should we try it? We go, yeah, all right, might as well try it. Can't get much worse than it is already. Let's try it. And as we tried applying some of the things we were hearing from Prabhupada, we realized that the whole mood of our discussion began changing, and we actually began finding our discussions pleasant and helpful. And over a course of 5 years, everything began healing. My faith came back. My relationship with my husband healed. And my husband initially started doing it just to help me, but he began benefiting from our discussions too. He began realizing that it was really helping him as well. And then we left Manchester, where we'd been started the center. We came back to the manor, and I began, you know, talking to other ladies, and I began realizing that many devotees, their marriages are struggling. In private, they're struggling with their faith. They may feel that they're coming to the temple for years and no one really cares about them, or they may have deep doubts that they feel ashamed to tell anybody, or they've got habits that they don't know how to, bad habits, they don't know how to overcome them, and they feel too ashamed to talk to anybody. So me and my husband thought, let's try and share with them what the journey that we've just gone through. You know, let's try to share with them the importance of discussing Prabhupada's books and how we began, the things that we heard and the things that helped us, maybe it'll help them. So I think for the last 20 years, we've been around at the manor, and that's what we've been doing. And I don't know if Ambika knew any of the ladies who would come to my discussion groups, but you know, little by little, devotees have began doing it, and those who have began doing it, all like us, began to experience a real healing in their relationships and a deepening, and the spiritual life became easier. Things become easier. So that's why we've put up the website, and that's why we're very passionate to try to encourage devotees to please learn good discussion habits and make a little time in your life. If you're married, the best person to do it with is your spouse or with your children. In fact, Prabhupada says that in the Bhagavad Gita. I will show you. If you ask me where, I will tell you, and you can see it yourselves. And if you're not married, if you're living in the ashram, then do it with someone else in the ashram. But if you have no one you can do it with, I can show you how you can do it alone. It's always nicer with someone else, but you can do it alone. It's a little harder, but you can. And it makes an incredible difference. I'll just tell you one last thing. Since we began doing this, I've seen that Krishna has worked miracles in our lives. We had different problems that we thought were unresolvable, and Krishna worked magic. And gradually our lives went from quite chaotic lives to peaceful lives, and kind of like progressive, little by little. I don't want to pretend and tell you I'm very advanced devotee. I'm not. I've got a lot of bad habits, but I feel as if we're on the right track now. We're going in the right direction now. We're not going chaos. So that's what brings me here and wants me to share. That's why I want to share with you the things that helped us. So thank you for listening to me. That was a really long introduction. I hope I can hear something from all of you as well.
So who would like to start introducing yourself? You can tell your name and something about your Krishna consciousness that you feel significant to express.
And especially, I would like to know what makes you interested in this conversation about improving our Sadhu Sanga. Please say everything else Ambika Mataji said, but also tell me something about why you're giving your valuable time to come and talk about improving our Sadhu Sanga.
Hare Krishna, I can start. I am Guna. I am from Latvia, but I'm living now in Finland. I am also a mom of 3, and I'm also still struggling a lot, but I just survive from devotee mercy. And even today, I didn't want to join because I have so busy mother. But I decided that I have to stop everything and I have to sit down and just to get what devotee mercy. That's how my sadhana is struggling a lot, but I'm trying not to make myself more depressed about or to feel guilty about that. I'm just somehow crawling in this direction just to be in Vaishnava association, just to get devotee mercy, and I hope someday will be easier days.
Guna, may I ask you,
yes.
would you like to, what makes you attracted to devotee Sangha? Why are you struggling so hard to stay in the devotee Sangha?
Why I struggle?
Why do you, because it's hard, why do you make such a big effort to stay in the devotee Sangha? Because it's an effort. What attracts you? What makes you keep trying?
It's hard to explain that devotee mercy. There is nothing like a devotee mercy. It's
Give me your experience of devotee mercy. What has it felt like in your life?
It feels like, for example, I have this 1,000 thoughts in my mind. I don't like this feeling that I can't manage everything. But if I stop everything and I go to temple, and if I just sit with devotees, and somehow those 1,000 thoughts has stopped and I feel more peaceful.
Wow.
That's the main thing.
So you're saying you're
Just feel blessed. Yeah. And
yeah. You're saying when you're with devotees, your mind calms down, the anxieties go away, and you just feel more as if I can cope. Life will be okay.
yeah, it definitely. You just feel in your heart that your batteries are charged again time.
Nice analogy. Nice analogy. Thank you so much for introducing yourself, Guna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anyone else would like to tell me? I told you a lot about me. I'd love to know something about all of you.
John Radhika is oldest. Will you sing again?
Who? Shan Radhika is oldest. Is there a devotee called Shan Radhika in the group right now?
You're muted. We can't hear.
Oh, okay.
Oops. Okay, Hare Krishna. Now you hear me?
I can hear.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm using this time not the computer but this phone, and there is not my name. So my name is Shyama Radhika Devidasi.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I'm 55 years old, and when I was 20 years old when I joined the temple, and lived in the temple about 16 years full time, and then have studied and done some work also. Yeah, what to say? Yeah, I feel that I'm kind of the last few years I have become more serious again, and want to, I feel I'm going to the better path, right path now, because I had some years when I was not, maybe also I had some doubts, and I was not so involved as I was the first 10-15 years. Also affected me because Harikesh left, and it was quite a big shock, 20 years ago, and it changed something. But yeah, I'm happy about this topic of Sadhu Sanga, because we've been thinking about it a lot, because devotees are so rare, those persons who actually take up Krishna consciousness and want to serve the Lord. So, but we can be very different, like from the material point of view, we maybe not would be together or be friends. And sometimes that might cause some problems, with relationships. And but still we are very much connected by this desire to serve Krishna and be purified and start to love him and each other. So I think this is a very nice topic, which is always, how to say, it's always like in front, it's always there when we are with devotees. And I think it's an art of being able to serve and relate to all the different devotees who happen to come to our life, like, and not thinking too much who is advanced and who is not advanced, but like trying to relate in a good way, fair way with everybody. It's a challenge, but it's a very nice challenge. And yeah, I'm happy that we discuss about these things. I have to say now, because I promised I will have to leave this meeting at 7 p.m. because I'm going to put the deities in our temple to rest tonight.
What time is it with you right now? What time is it?
I have now, it's 23 past 6.
Okay,
PM.
so you only have a short time.
About 40 minutes I have, because I have to, I was not planning to do that, but because the head puchari he has so much to do today, so I want to, do this seva tonight also. But yeah, nice to hear from you, and nice that there is also others, some Prabhus in this meeting this time before we were ladies. And yeah, it's nice to hear. And I feel that, I don't know you, Cintamani, Mataji, but I feel that you are very warm and very sweet person, and I'm very happy to hear from you.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you so much, Radhika Mataji. I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
Would you mind if I reflected some things back to you?
Yeah,
So
I know,
you're
please.
saying you joined when you were 20, you were 16 at the, I think you joined and you're 20, and then you were in the ashram for 16 years.
Yeah, about that time. Yeah.
You left after 16 years and you were working and studying outside, and
like I started to study some healthcare and social work things, and I was practicing like at home and like that, but I like that. Yeah.
you were studying for a career in healthcare and social work, and so you could maintain yourself, and your spiritual life took a little dip, so you kind of
I have felt something like that. Yeah.
But now you're 55, so your faith is coming back. You want to take your spiritual life more seriously.
Yeah, luckily.
And you're saying that, devotees are very special people, because it's very rare to find someone who wants to purify their hearts and want to love God and serve God. But sometimes there's a challenge associated with devotees, because we're in very different modes. If it wasn't that we all want to serve Krishna, we probably wouldn't associate with each other. We'd have different group of friends. But it's a challenge, and it's an important challenge to learn how to associate with each other in a way that we can love each other and help each other to love Krishna. So you feel this is a very important topic for us to talk about.
Yeah.
Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, good.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I want to model to you everything that how we discuss in this. This is a little concocted, but the website, initially we just called it Improving Our Sadhu Sanga, but that's such a mouthful to say improving our Sadhu Sanga all the time.
Yeah.
So now we call it IMOS. IMOS is the first letter. I for improving, I am for improving, O for R, SS for Sadhu Sanga. So now I call it the IMOS method.
Yeah.
The IMOS method. So I'd like to model to you all the time how we discuss Shastra using the IMOS method, using the principles of improving our Sadhu Sanga. So thank you so much for sharing with us, especially with me. I'm very grateful, Shan Radhika Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I would love to hear from other people on the group. I'd love to know you a little bit and what makes you come here today.
I guess Janardana Prabhu's idea was to go on a seniority order, so I guess I would be the next one.
Hare Krishna, Gopinath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So I'm Gopinath Das. I joined ISKCON 26 years ago in Finland, and I lived in a temple. First of all, I was studying music before I joined, and the classic story, I dropped out of school and joined the Hare Krishnas. I lived in a temple for 5.5 years doing traveling Sankirtan mainly. Then I got married and my marriage broke, no children, and some other struggles were there a little bit. But actually, in the very beginning, when I started chanting japa, it was a good experience for me. Like my whole world value system turned totally upside down. And since then, when I tasted the temple life as a full-time brahmachari, I definitely understood that this is my way of life, no matter what happens.
Wow.
Then after marriage, I began to study also Shastra. I actually moved to Mayapur. I have a little flat in there, flat in Mayapur still. I joined with the former Ekalavya Prabhu. Now he's got the sannyas initiation. He's Sri Krishna Chaitanya Swami now. So we did some preaching, kirtan tours around India and sometimes outside of India. And at the same time, I was studying in Mayapur Institute. I took Shastric courses there. Then my doors opened to UK in 2014. I was serving first under Parasuram Prabhu with his Food for All team. And then I was living in a Soho temple for big periods of time. And this background picture actually behind me. This is from UK Padayatra 2019.
Oh, really? With Parashuram Prabhu?
Yeah, that's Mahavishnu Swami here.
Yes, yes, I recognize him. And
Yeah.
are you in the white playing the guitar? Is that you?
Yeah, that's me. I'm also being recognized as a bass player in some Harinams and some Kirtan Mela occasions in Mayapur or somewhere else also. So I've traveled around the world a bit, and now because of Corona times, I got the lockdown in Mayapur for a couple of months, but 1 year ago I managed to come back to Finland, and
Wow.
and here I am. To take Sadhu Sanga online like this, it's a good opportunity now that devotees cannot travel and have a live
Yes.
Sadhu Sanga. Then it's definitely good to develop this form of modern technology in the devotional service.
Absolutely. Would you mind if I reflected back what I heard, what I remember from your sharing? Can I reflect back to you, or would you like to say more before I reflect back?
Yeah, well, I could just mention that with Parashuram and Giridhari's team, that UK festival team, we toured around UK a little bit like I remember one Rath Theatre tour that was from Newcastle. We went all the way to Scotland, and then we came back from through the West Coast, Liverpool and Manchester.
All
So
right.
I've been there. And I've also read your husband's Ramayana version.
Yeah.
I think Krishna Dharma looks
Yeah.
like a very prominent devotee to put out there such books like this. So I'm looking forward to hear or maybe read Mahabharata one day. Also, so I'm happy to meet you.
I'm very happy to meet you, Gopinath Prabhu. I just reflect back what I heard. So you were studying music. You were at college or uni studying music.
Yeah, that was kind of a not like a really college level, but we have a pop and jazz music school, pop and jazz conservatory here in Finland. So I had a bass guitar as my main instrument there.
So it's a specialized music school. You were studying bass guitar, and then you met the devotees and you left your course, you dropped out, and you became a full-time brahmachari, I think for around 4 years. Maybe I'm getting confused with other people now. But after that, you got married. Unfortunately, your marriage didn't work. And then you went to Mayapur to study Shastra with Ekalavya Prabhu, who's now taken sannyas. I actually think I met Ekalavya Prabhu in Bulgaria. My husband and I went to Bulgaria one time when he was there. And so now he's sannyas. I forget his sannyas name. So you were studying Shastra in Mayapur. And when the lockdown began, you were still there for a couple of months, and then you managed to come back. You also have been to the UK. You were at the London temple and helping Parashuram Prabhu with food for all. You also joined the Padayatra, where you'd play the bass guitar. You traveled around England, so you've been to Manchester, and you've read my husband's book of Ramayana. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. I just let everyone know that currently we're working on it sounds really kind of like, oh, really? But my husband likes to write. So he's got to write. And he decided we're going to write, I'm assisting him by his kindness. We're writing a dramatized version of the Bhagavatam, canto by canto. It's had some very good reviews from devotees in general, as well as senior devotees. And I will send Ambika a link. They're all available on Amazon. But we've done it verse by verse, Prabhupada. So you can follow Prabhupada's, but we've done it in a kind of like a dramatic way. It's hard to explain, but it does seem to work quite well. The devotees so far have enjoyed it. So I'll just let you know about that. And I can, if anyone's interested, I will send Ambika Prabhu a link where you can have a look at them. So thank you so much, Gopinath Prabhu. It's very nice to have met you. Thank you for introducing yourself to me. Anyone else?
I guess I'm next. Then.
And your name is
my name is Janardhan.
Janardhan Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Janardhan
yes,
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So I joined 1997, 24 years ago. And I lived in a temple for 3.5 years as a brahmachari. And then I moved out to in North Finland, where I live now. I have a small house here, which is also we are using it as a preaching center. We are having some Namahatta groups and like that. Then
Wonderful.
And I have done Sankirtan since 97. I had some breaks between, but I've done actively Sankirtan book distribution maybe 18 years or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So but now, because of this lockdown thing, I haven't been able to go out for the last 1 year now, but I'm really eagerly waiting and hoping that I can continue distributing books.
Wow.
And I also have an apartment in Vrindavan. So I bought it 2016. So last 5 winters before this, I've been in Vrindavan. And I also have done some book distribution there in Vrindavan. And I'm also doing deity worship. I have at Gonitai deities for 16 years now, more than 16 years now.
Wow.
And I've been serving them here in North.
In the North Finland.
And what else? Yeah. And when I also, like Samrarika, and you told that you also had some difficulties in previous, some years ago, long time ago. So I also, when I moved out from the temple, I had some serious problems in my spiritual life, and I had to move out from the temple, and then I came back here in the north. But then somehow I had a little break in between that I was not chanting, but somehow by Krishna's grace, I began again. I moved out from the temple in 2001, I think, and then I was chanting for the first year when I moved out. But then I had some break, and now since 2003 I have been chanting again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So may I reflect back some of the things I heard?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So you joined in 1997.
Yeah.
And you lived in the ashram to around 2021. Not 2021. Yeah. No, not that's this
2001.
year. 2001. Yeah, 2001.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you left the ashram because you were having some doubts. You were unhappy in your Krishna consciousness. You left, and you moved to the north of Finland, where you bought a house. But even though you chanted for the first year after you left, and then your doubts overwhelmed you and you stopped chanting. Yeah. But subsequently, again, you picked up your chanting and your faith came back, and you've been now distributing Prabhupada's books for 18 years. You use your home as a preaching center, as a Namahatta center. You even bought a house in Vrindavan. You were there a few years ago. You're distributing books there. You love deity worship. You've been worshiping your deities, your Gonitai deities, for 18 years now. So
16 years.
16 years, thank you.
Yeah.
So your faith has really come back, and even though you did have a little rough patch, but that's what you do. And after the coronavirus, when the lockdown stopped, you're really hoping you can carry on with your service of book distribution.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to ask you, and I also forgot to ask Gopinath Prabhu, so maybe both of you can tell me, why are you here today? You're both very senior, well-established devotees. Why did you come to this meeting today about improving our Sadhu Sangha? What attracted you to spending your time with me this evening? Can you give me why you're here this evening? What you would hope to get out of it?
I guess main reason for me was that Ambika Mataji has been organizing all kinds of things, because at least she asked me to join to her Sanga, and then she's kind of directing this our Sanga group to different things. So she introduced us this opportunity, and since we have an opportunity to associate with experienced senior devotee, so why not?
Okay, you're saying it's really, the credit goes to Ambika Mataji. She's organizing this, and you're thinking she's making such an effort, and she's bringing devotees here who've been around for a long time. So you think, why not take the association? Why not see where it will take you? What did I understand you correctly? Thank you so much. And Janardhan Prabhu, what brings you here this evening?
Yeah, Ambika Mataji, she invited me to come here.
So my thanks.
Yeah.
So my thanks are to Ambika. My thanks are to Ambika Prabhu.
So this sounded like an interesting seminar to take part. So
okay, thank you so much. And I'm aware that we're spending a lot of time in introductions. Maybe I won't reflect back to everyone everything now, because so we can get on to the topic of improving our Sadhu Sanga. Ambika, would you like everyone else to introduce themselves, or would you like us to start talking about improving our Sadhu Sanga?
If we can go a quick round so that everyone can tell their names and a little bit about themselves.
Yes, thank you. And I won't reflect anything back anymore.
Okay. Who would like to continue? You can freely, express yourself now. No order.
Is it okay if I continue?
Yes.
So I'm old, but I'm not old in my devotee years. I started 2014 in Ashtanga Yoga, and then I start singing all kind of mantras, and then I found the Krishna Bhaktas, and then I continued with them singing. Unfortunately, my body is very sensitive, and I get like a sick in my body. But then I have like a suggestion, and I should still learn something. I'm not very good in philosophical things, but I'm doing that, and I have been in very good Mataji group for 1 year, and I think we have a little bit progress. It's nice to have so we are all like beginners, except there's few who has been longer, and we are like supporting each others, and it's nice to have the company, and I think I have so much to learn how to behave in a nice sangha, and I have tried to listen some your videos, and I think I have learned something, and I'm so happy about that.
Wow, thank you so much for listening. What's your name, Mataji?
I'm a Bhaktin Heli.
Bhaktin Heli. Very nice to meet you, Bhaktin Heli. Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances.
Accept mine.
So honored to be with you here, and I'm sorry I was a little bit absent because I think I was a little bit having a little bit fever today, so I was taking rest and listening your talk, all of you. But yeah, I've been my name is Bhaktin Rosa. I've been I visited temple first time 2011, I think, so that's like 10 years ago, and then I slowly started to kind of engage myself. I wasn't looking for spiritual anything. I was an angry anarchist punker, and so I was a little bit like doubtful for many years, but then our philosophy is so great, so that's like even stubborn person like me that convert. And of course chanting is something that can melt anyone's heart, so I slowly started to chant and be more serious devotee, and especially I visited Vrindavan 3 times and stayed there for months, and that really changed my life, like being there, living in that kind of spiritual bubble. And I also remember being in your lecture in Prabhupada's quarters sometime. I don't remember a year or anything, but I remember it really made an impression on me. I think if I'm correct, I really
at the manor. At the manor,
Hmm?
you were at the manor.
No, in Vrindavan, Prabhupada's quarter in Krishna Balaram temple.
Okay. Okay. I can't
Yeah.
quite remember. I may have given a talk there. I can't quite remember.
Okay, it was years ago if it was
Yeah.
that, but anyway. Yeah, and then, well, now I've been living in our farm. We have a small farm, Kopala or Kopala Valley here in Finland, and we are just in a pioneering stage. There's basically 5 of us living here now. I'm a gardener, soon to be graduated, and I also do rap music. Krishna conscious, I try to do.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say, but thank you for this song. I participate because I really want to hear all this nectar you are sharing here, and just this Sadhu Sanga, Vaisnavi Sanga is very, very, very important for my spiritual life.
Thank you so much, Rosa. It's such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Cintamani, very nice to meet you.
Hi, Krishna Mataji, very nice to meet you too.
So my name is Mira, and I'm 44 years old, and I'm a new devotee. I started chanting a little over 1 year ago, and I've read the Bhagavad Gita until 15th chapter now.
Wonderful.
So that's my history with Krishna consciousness.
And what brings you here this evening? What do you hope to get out of this evening?
Oh, well, because I don't know many bhaktas, I'm so new. It's just so wonderful to associate with other bhaktas and just listen and learn.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you, Mary. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. I guess everybody knows me already. My name is Ambika Devidasi, and I'm from Finland, but I have lived at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, UK, the recent years. And my heart is still kind of based at the manor. I'm still in the, keeping in touch regularly with the devotees there, and we have this type of Zoom meetings as well, and all kinds of activities together. But yes, I also love to be here in Finland now, and I see that there's a lot of very nice opportunities here as well, very nice devotees and association. And I personally learned so much with all the wonderful devotees. And also, while I have been working on this Improving Sadhu Sanga project recently, I already explained to Cintamani Mataji that it's been a very deep and wonderful process to go through all these things. And the most important is to learn that what things actually are the most important for us all in our spiritual life, for me personally, but also for everyone in general. And, of course, to get deeper into Srila Prabhupada's instructions about this topic. So
wow.
Thank you so much for joining in, and Cintamani Mataji, thank you so much for coming and enlightening us about giving us this opportunity.
I feel like a fraud when you thank me, because I feel very grateful to you that you're interested in this subject. And I just would like to make a little proviso. I am not qualified to enlighten anyone because I'm a conditioned soul, but I can share with you, and I have shared on the Improving Sadhu Sanga, things I've heard from Prabhupada. You'll see that everything we put on the Improving Our Sadhu Sanga is quotes from Prabhupada. And anything that we say we completely support it with what Prabhupada is saying. So I think, I hope that Prabhupada's Vani, his instructions, will enlighten me and you, all of us together, if we can just discuss them. So thank you very much for having me here. And I look forward to the rest of our time together. I think we've been together now for 1 hour, and you said another hour, so we'll continue from here.
Yes.
So I was saying to Ambika Prabhu that, we go to a lot of lectures and we just sit and we listen passively, but not a lot changes for us in our lives, just listening passively. And I don't know how many of you have watched any of the Improving Our Sadhu Sangha videos or looked at the Improving Sadhu Sangha website and read any of the principles. May I just have people telling me if they have looked at have read or learned anything from the Improving Our Sadhu Sangha? May I just ask who has had the time to do that? Can anyone just say out loud if they've read it or watched it?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Anyone else other than Shyam Radhika?
Not all, I have to admit, but some.
Okay, but some of it.
Ambika had to send us.
Anyone else read anything?
I have tried few, not all, and there are so many.
Yeah, so there's 16 principles, and these are all the, in the beginning I was introducing myself, these are all the things that we were hearing from Prabhupada that changed our lives. So I'm going to tell you, principle 5 is, I'm just opening it up. Principle 5 is talking about, Prabhupada says, many quotes, that when you hear, you have to repeat what you're hearing. When we go to a class and we just sit, maybe a big sannyasi, maybe one of ourselves, we sit and we just listen passively without repeating anything, without engaging. It will go in this ear and out that. It will not really sink into our hearts. There will be no deep connection with what we're hearing. And there's no certainty we've understood it correctly even. We may have misunderstood something, and then we apply what we think we've heard, but we apply it in the mode of ignorance or the mode of passion, and we don't always get the result. So a very important part of our changing our sadhu sangha is we have to repeat what we're hearing. That's what I was trying to do for some of you. When you spoke, I was repeating back what I heard. This is an essential thing for us to do. When we study Prabhupada's books, we have to stop. I stop every sentence practically, and then I say, what do I understand Prabhupada to mean? And put it in my own words. We have to actively participate in our learning. We can't expect that spiritual life someone will come and tell me and I will change. No, we have to associate with Prabhupada and make the effort. We can be in the movement for 40 years and not really deeply change. And we can be in the movement for 6 months and deeply change if we associate correctly with Prabhupada and really begin to study Gita and repeat in our own words, what is Prabhupada telling me? What is Krishna telling me? And put it in my own words. It's this change of heart that has to take place, which won't take place if we just sit and passively listen without repeating. Would anyone be kind enough to repeat back what you heard? This repetition.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Does anyone, Rosa, you can.
No, you can say.
You go ahead. You started already.
Well, you said that many times we listen to a lecture and the lecture might be amazing, but we don't really hear what is said there, and then that's why we need to repeat what is at least internally. And you were mentioning that when you listen to Prabhupada, every sentence you kind of put in your own words.
Very nice, Rosa.
And you can be in the movement for a long time and not change, or be a short time and change a lot.
You understood really well. Just one point I'd like to clarify, because you understood everything so well, you're giving me a chance to clarify. We have to repeat externally. Of course, we can't do that in a lecture. That's why Prabhupada had something called Istagosti. How many of you have heard this term, Istagosti? Okay. Istagostis, modern day ISKCON, have been used for management purposes. If we want the devotees to clean up after themselves, we hold, look, Istagosti, look, Prabhus, everyone's leaving their dishes undone. Would you please clean up after it? But Istagosti is meant to be philosophical discussion. So there's lecture, and then there's Istagosti, where we come together with one or two other devotees, and we repeat externally. You know, if we don't repeat externally, there's no way of confirming if we've understood things properly. Would anyone be kind enough, either Rosa or anyone else, to repeat back what I've just saying?
That Istagosti is meant to have like a discussion after the lecture.
Yes.
And to repeat what was heard from the lecture and have discussion about it.
You understood really well. It may be to do with the discussion lecture, or it could just be we do regular Istagosti with Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada said we should discuss his books scrutinizingly, word for word. I will show you the principle that talks about that. I think the principle that says word for word may be principle. I'm just going on my thing. He says principle 3, principle 5, 6, principle 6. He says word for word, you should discuss my books. So in a lecture, the speaker doesn't do word for word. The speaker talks in general. And I hate to say this, but sometimes the class giver doesn't even really talk about Prabhupada's purport. So that is a problem. But let's say the speaker actually speaks about Prabhupada's purport, which would be very good. Still, in our Istagostis, we have to go back to Prabhupada's books and discuss scrutinizingly. We can't discuss scrutinizingly in a lecture because we do one purport for every 45 minutes. So it's hard to go through word for word. But if you look at principle, I think it's principle 6, scrutinize, you'll see so many quotes from Prabhupada. He says, each word of Srimad Bhagavatam is important. That's one lecture. And another lecture, he says, so by studying Krishna, you become liberated. So these verses should be studied very carefully, understanding each word very carefully. Then you'll understand Krishna. So daily, me and my husband, we do these discussions. It's separate from the lecture. The lecture is for moving forward quickly through the Bhagavatam or the Gita. One verse each lecture. But the Istagosti is now for going through much more slowly and for really scrutinizing what we're reading. It's a little bit like when Lord Chaitanya cleaned Gundicha temple. You know, one time he cleaned Gundicha temple, it was just for getting out all the external rubbish. And then he made them clean again, scrutinizingly, everything. So we have lecture for general knowledge, but then we need Istagostis alongside our lectures where the devotees, 2 or 3 devotees come together and we scrutinize Prabhupada's words and we repeat in our own words. This kind of scrutinizing association with Prabhupada will bring about gradually, a real transformation of our hearts. Anyone would like to repeat back?
Okay, can I? Oh, Gopinath Prabhu, please.
Oh, a couple of things came in my mind from this. Like, there's a class for general philosophy, and then there's 2 or 3 people Istagosti of very scrutinizing, analyzing every word, saying things in their own words. That's actually, now that you quoted Kundita Mandira's cleaning, also from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the Atmarama verse for 64 times.
Perfect.
I think that's a quite good example of.
Excellent example. Excellent example. Thank you. So, you know, the thing is, I said to Ambika Prabhu that I didn't want to give you a lecture tonight because I realized we can sit and give lectures and really you will all go away and nothing changes. So what I'm looking for, why I'm giving my time, is first of all, I am giving my time because Ambika Prabhu has shown such commitment. She went through the website, she studied it, she transcribed it, she translated it. I think I want to reciprocate with that. She's making an effort. What I'm looking for is to see who's interested in your group to actually learn to improve your Sadhu Sangha, to actually take the material which is already on their website seriously, study it, and apply it to your study of Bhagavad Gita. Or decide, read it and see, do we agree with the quotes that Cintamani and Krishna Dharma have shared? You may disagree with us, but we're sharing with you things that we heard, that we applied, that has completely made things different for us, improved our lives. So I'm looking for people, and I will be happy just to work with Ambika if she's the only one who really shows an interest to become an active learner, not a passive learner, an active learner. So if there's anyone else in your group who thinks, I would like to improve how I associate with Prabhupada, I would like to associate with him in a way that gradually brings about a real transformation of my heart, I would be happy to work with such groups, small groups, but I would ask of you that you have to make some of your own effort first before I work with you to make your discussions better. Would anyone be kind enough to understand anything I said?
I could do.
Please.
So at first you were explaining that when we study Srila Prabhupada's books, we should study very scrutinizingly. So we should read word by word. And that's very important so that we get the correct understanding about what we are learning. And in that way, we make progress as well. And then Gopinath Prabhu, oh yes, and you were talking about the Ishtakoshti, which is, we know it as a meeting at the temple where we gather and we see the practical services and how things are, going on. And, this managerial issues brought up. And actually, Ishtakoshti is this philosophical discussion, based on philosophical discussion, where we get into Srila Prabhupada's instructions and we go through them word to word.
Yes.
Yes. And then afterwards, Gopinath gave this example about Atmarama verse, which is devotees who are self-satisfied, and it was repeated 56 times or
64 different meanings.
64 different meanings. Okay, yes. So sorry.
It's okay.
And then after that, you were explaining that you are happy to work with us. You are happy to guide us when we really want to improve our Sadhu Sangha, and when we really want to learn to associate with Srila Prabhupada and his instructions that we can read from the books. So we can form a small group and we can gather like this and we can do some sessions together.
Yes, thank you so much, Ambika. So if anyone's actually interested, that would require that you speak. And in this kind of improving Sadhu Sangha, you have to be willing to repeat back. I generally recommend that you do it in small groups of 2 to 3 people. Because when you have a group this big, most of you will just sit and listen and not participate. And those people, hopefully it'll be of some value, but it won't give you the real effect. The real effect comes when you participate. And it's hard to get 24 people participating, all of them for an hour or an hour and a half, even 2 hours. But if you have small groups and you study the improving the principles, all the principles that are up. I can quickly go through some of them. If you study the principles, practice applying them in small groups, then as you see what is working for you and what's not working for you, I can join your group and just help you improve your discussions so that your discussions begin helping you more and more. But that takes your commitment. You know, for me to give that time, I need to see that, oh, you are also prepared to make your group 2-3 people, study the principles, try yourselves to apply them, and then let me know where you're struggling. And then I can join your group for 1 or 2 sessions and try to help you. Would anyone be kind enough to reflect back?
I can try.
Thank you.
So you were encouraging us to make small groups, 2 or 3, because otherwise there's somebody who are not a possibility to be involved so much probably once, and in the group it will be scrutinized. So I understand it like a sentence by sentence and not whole words at once, and so it might be quite slow. And then you say that if these groups are developed, so you can involve in this and for few meetings and like give some hints if there's some problems.
Yes, very nice. You understood very well. Thank you so much. That was an excellent example of reflecting back and putting it in your own words. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So I'd like to know from you whether this is something that you'd like to do. I just want to share with you a verse from the Bhagavatam, 11.3.30. Do any of you have access to the Bhagavatam, either on your devices, or maybe you have a hard copy of the 11th canto near you on your bookshelves? If you can get access on Vedabase online or whatever.
Excuse me, Mataji, which verse again?
Canto 11, chapter 3, text 30.
I have it here in front of me.
Fantastic. So I'll just wait till everyone has it, or anyone who wants to have it. And then maybe Gopinath Prabhu, you'd be kind enough to read it once everyone's can see it.
Was it 11th canto, 3rd chapter, and which verse?
Text 30.
30.
Yes.
I didn't hear which chapter.
Chapter 3, Canto 11, Chapter 3, Text 30. This is something else we always do in this way of discussing. We actually open up the evidences and we look for ourselves. We don't take it on someone else's word. Look for yourselves always. So has everyone got the text? Everyone who wants to get it has got it now? Okay, so maybe Gopinath Prabhu, you'd be kind enough to read it aloud.
You're on mute, Prabhu.
Just the translation?
Just the translation, please.
One should learn how to associate with the devotees of the Lord by gathering with them to chant the glories of the Lord. This process is most purifying. As devotees thus develop their loving friendship, they feel mutual happiness and satisfaction. And by thus encouraging one another, they are able to give up material sense gratification, which is the cause of all suffering.
Yes. So a few things Prabhupada says here. We have to learn how to associate. He says this in many other places too. At least one that comes to my mind is 3rd canto, chapter 3, text 6. Prabhupada writes in that canto, in the purport, unless and until one is trained in the culture of good association, one cannot become good. So it requires, again, this point here, one has to learn, one requires training. There is a culture to good association. 17:15 Bhagavad Gita tells us some of the culture. It says, when we discuss amongst Shastra, our talk should be very pleasing. We shouldn't be attacking each other. Have any of you had this experience? You hear sometimes devotees discussing philosophy and we disagree and we become very rude to each other. Has anyone had this experience or seen it happen with other people? We'll
Yes.
see there are issues in ISKCON where did we fall from Vaikuntha or not? Was the earth round or flat? Or should women give initiation or not? And we become very rude with each other. But Bhagavad Gita chapter 17, text 15, Prabhupada says that discussion amongst devotees should be very pleasing. We should speak very kindly, very gently to each other. And we should immediately cite Shastra. Immediately, not just say, I read in Bhagavad Gita, but bring it in front of us so we can see it. So this is some of the culture of good association. All these things are there in the principles. All of these things that I'm saying to you are the quotes and everything is there in the principles. So we have to learn the culture of a good association. And if we learn the culture correctly and we do correct Sadhu Sanga, this is what we will experience. We'll develop loving friendships. We will feel our Sadhu Sanga will give us mutual happiness and satisfaction. Everyone will go feeling, oh, that was really helpful. That was really nice. And we'll begin to feel, I can do it. We'll feel encouraged. I can do this. Okay, maybe not overnight. Maybe I have to work my way towards giving up my sense, but slow, step by step, I will do it. And one day we'll actually be able to give up our sense gratification. So if we're doing Sadhu Sanga properly, there is great benefit. If we're not doing it properly, we won't experience these benefits. So I leave it to you to decide if you want to study the Improving Our Sadhu Sanga website, if you want to study the principles, if you want to form small groups and start trying to practice the principles and see how it works for you. And if you do that, then in around 6 months, once you've practiced doing it yourselves, you can come back to me and say, look, it's working great and we don't need any more help. Or we're really trying, but sometimes our discussions, we're struggling still. Can you give us a little bit more help? So then I'll be happy. Because anything you're struggling with, I've probably struggled with too. And I can just share with you how we overcame it. So, but the Sangha we have to take is with Prabhupada's Vani. And we have to learn how to take that Sangha in a way which actually together, which actually begins to give us this mutual happiness and satisfaction. So I will pause there. Would anyone like to reflect anything back? And then I will let you guys speak after you've reflected back anything I've said. Maybe someone who's not reflected anything back so far. It doesn't matter if this is your first day in Krishna consciousness. You know, you're intelligent, like Prabhupada said in that lecture. You have your intelligence. It doesn't matter whether we've been in the movement for 30 years or 30 days or 3 days. But if something which is being said, you think this is interesting for me, please reflect it back.
Anyone would like to go? To give it a try? Okay, perhaps I could do. So let me think, how did it start?
We read 11th canto, chapter 3, text 30.
Yes, we read this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, and it speaks about how we should learn how to associate with the devotees and how we should gather together and discuss about Srila Prabhupada's instructions and glories of the Lord. And in this way, we purify ourselves, and eventually we come to a level where we really realize the instructions and we realize Krishna. But for that, we need to practice, and we need to see the endeavors, and we can decide ourselves whether we want to continue for some time, gather in small groups and see how we make progress, how we experience this, and what kind of doubts, what kind of questions we will face, if we will face something. Eventually we will. When we work on something, then we go through things, and the change happens within the heart at the same time when we really focus on learning and understanding. So this is up to us. Did I understand you correctly, Mataji?
Perfectly, Ambika. I sped a lot, and that was really hard to reflect that back. I'm really impressed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I've now said everything I want to say, and I leave it up to you. I did tell Ambika I'd like to hear from you, so I've spoken a lot. I'm happy to hear your comments, or your impressions, your questions, anything you would like to say.
Okay, so shall I start with a question?
Please do.
I made quite a lot of notes when I was hearing the seminar videos, and there was some interesting, and because these topics are very deep, philosophical, and also dealing with our empathy towards others and our connections and how we practice like this, how we practice as a group. So it's a very wonderful and fascinating topic as well, because it's related to, Krishna consciousness, the spiritual connection is there as well. So could you elaborate a little bit about this?
Okay, you're saying that, let me just reflect back. You're saying you made quite a few notes and asked questions as you were going through the transcriptions. And one thing you realize that it talks a lot about our connections, how we connect together, and how we relate together. But putting Krishna in the center, it's with Krishna involved as well. So did I understand you correctly?
Yes, you understood me very well. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're wanting to know if I could say a little bit more about that aspect of how we connect together and how we develop our relationships with Krishna in the middle.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Ambika. I really appreciate it. So putting Krishna in the middle, as far as I understand, I can only share my lights with you, is putting Prabhupada's Vani. In the age of Kali, Bhagavatam is Krishna. There is that verse in the first canto where it says, in the age of Kali, when Krishna has departed, where will religious principles reside? It's in the Bhagavatam and also Bhagavad Gita, because Krishna's spoken word is non-different from Krishna. Krishna's name is not different from him. Krishna's words are not different from him. And the Bhagavatam is all about him. So these two, at least these main scriptures, Gita, Bhagavatam, CC is more advanced, but Gita and Bhagavatam are the core texts that we all have to study if we want to advance spiritually. So putting Krishna in the center of our relationship means coming together and discussing these books. Gita, if we can't have time for both, at least Gita. You will see amongst the quotes I have that Prabhupada says that one cannot understand Bhagavatam if one has not understood the Gita. Let me see if I can find it. What that study of the Gita is essential, otherwise we can't even understand the Bhagavatam. So putting Krishna in the center means putting at least Gita in the center. And how we relate together. Many of the principles on the, one of the main principles on the webpage is to discuss, I think it's principle 9, to discuss with humility, gratitude, mutual appreciation, and respect. Because very often, and I'm sure this doesn't happen amongst you devotees, you all strike me as being very gentle and very respectful and kind devotees, but it can happen in our movement. It can happen in our in the association of ISKCON devotees, that we bring our disrespect and our lording it over and our kind of like one-upmanship into our association with each other. So a very important part of the improving our Sadhu Sangha approach is to work on the discussing with appreciating each other, gentility. Even this act of reflecting back shows I've listened to you. I'm interested in what you have to say. You know, I'm being attentive to you. I'd like to find out from those of you I reflected things back to you, how it made you feel that I actually heard you. Because so often we talk and we feel that no one really heard me. So a lot about our improving our Sadhu Sangha approach that builds our mutual loving relationships is learning to actually show that appreciation for each other, show that respect to each other, hear each other. Little things you've heard Ambika and myself say. Ambika's been studying the videos, so she's really good at it. When I reflect things back, she says, yes, you understood perfectly. This is gratitude. In mature life, when someone does something that we don't like, when someone does something that upsets us, we're very good at telling them, no, you didn't understand me. That was all wrong, you know. But when someone does something good, we don't take the time to thank them, to tell them, wow, thank you, you understood me perfectly. So these kinds of, as I call them in English, niceties, these little kindnesses to each other, these little efforts to appreciate each other, they're very important and integral part of the improving our Sadhu Sangha approach to Sadhu Sangha. It's very important. It's one whole principle is dedicated to it, but it's really, it's there in other principles too, like repeating back. I don't know if that's what you were hoping I would say or where I was going to go with it, but I hope it's connected to the point that you raised.
Yes, thank you very much, Mataji. You understood me perfectly. And can I reflect back to you?
I would love that. I would love that.
Thank you. So first of all, you were explaining that we can find the religious principles from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And those scriptures are what we should learn so that we are able to make advancement in Krishna consciousness in our spiritual life. And for that advancement, we also need to gather together to discuss about these transcendental subject matters that we can find from Srila Prabhupada's purports and translations. And for that reason, for our mutual happiness and advancement as well, which are hand in hand together, we need to connect in a proper way, which is, or it requires our humility and mutual appreciation towards one another. And then sometimes it can happen that we end up in a difficult situation where there's disrespectful behaviors and things like this, which is not favorable for us to, yes, because we don't get inspired if we are put down or if we need to argue about such subject matters that reflect with the heart, where the churning of the heart happens, because I understood that this is not academic studying that we are doing, but it's like particularly for the heart, for the change
perfectly. You
consciousness.
So nicely. You put it in your own words and you really captured the essence of what I was saying. Thank you, Ambika. I'm sorry I cut you short. I was just so impressed with how you reflected back. Did you want to say more, please? That I interrupted you.
No, I think I don't remember more.
Yeah, that was perfect. You really captured where I'm going with this. Thank you. So I don't know if anyone else has any comments or contribution, anything they agree or disagree with, or any questions.
I actually, I was thinking of one of the principles was talking about empathy, empathetic listening,
Yes.
and to experience the other person's attempt. How do you call it?
To repeat back. So I'm just trying to find the principle of regularly repeating your own words, scrutinize the meaning. Don't. Okay, it's principle 7. I think it's no, it's not principle 7. It's principle 8. Help your discussion partner develop their own understanding by using empathic hearing skills. You may have experienced this. If I reflect back what you're saying, it gives you a chance to clarify your thoughts, to think. When we're discussing this philosophy is difficult. If we really, it's a science. It's a science. And it's very nuanced. It's not black or white. It's a beta type of it. It's very inconceivable. It's very nuanced. So when we're discussing, we're trying to put what Prabhupada is saying, we're trying to understand. It really helps us if our discussion partner reflects back what we're saying to us, because that helps us clarify. It helps us to hear our own thoughts. So rather than turning it into like a ping pong match, no, I disagree. No, it says this. No, I disagree. It says this. We take the time to help each other. If you're thinking about something Prabhupada is saying, even if I don't agree with your thinking, I will first just keep understanding you, keep helping you to think your thoughts through, to be able to try to go where you're trying to go. Because in the beginning, we're almost feeling our way. It's a new science for all of us. So that empathic listening to each other, repeating back to each other with respect, that really helps us to think our thoughts through. Is that is that the principle you were referring to, Ambika?
Yes, because it's very deep and very important. If I can just reflect back a little bit, if I can still remember. So we need to use this empathetic listening skills so that we can help out each other and we can clear each other's thoughts about what they have just been talking about.
Yes.
Perfect. It gives us a deeper aspect to what we are studying.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
And you said also that even if you don't agree what the other one is saying, you try to get deeper into this other person's thought process and try to understand it more deeply before you shoot your comments.
Yes, thank you, Gopinath, for picking up on that. Yes. And this is part of our respect for each other. You know, this principle 8, I think, is empathic hearing, but principle 7 is don't debate. It's very interesting. These are all things we heard from Prabhupada and we put them together into principles. But let me just read you something Prabhupada says in principle 7. He says, don't debate. This is a letter that Prabhupada wrote to a devotee called Tribhuvanath, who was a Prabhupada disciple. How many of you knew Tribhuvanath or heard of him? Some of you who came to, yes, Gopinath, I thought you were in the UK, you may know of him. And Janardhan Prabhu. So Sri Bhuvanath in 72 was the president for the Scottish Temple, and Prabhupada wrote him this letter in 1972. He said, "I'm very much stressing nowadays that my students shall increase their reading of my books and try to understand them from different angles of vision. Each shloka can be seen from many, many angles of vision. So become practiced in seeing things like this." And I love the fact that Gopinath Prabhu raised the Atmarama verse. Lord Chaitanya, he's God. He saw 64 different lights. But as conditioned souls, we may not see 64. And you know, the lights Lord Chaitanya saw, they contradicted each other. He would understand the same word to mean very wealthy and very poor, very learned and very ruffian, very bad character. So he saw different lights, but all his lights were correct. So when we come to discuss with each other, we may not see all the lights. Krishna may give us 1 or 2 lights, and the other person, he gives a different light. What we generally do, we end up arguing with each other. No, you're wrong and I'm right. No, you're wrong and I'm right. We insult each other. But in the improving our sadhu sangha, we become practiced. We think, oh, this person sees it differently from me. That's okay. Let me try to understand their perspective. Let me help them to see if we can find any. Let me help them to think. Later on, I can share my light. I don't have to agree with them, but let me help them. Let me see from their perspective. Because Prabhupada told us, become practiced in seeing things from different perspectives. And this is a very important aspect of the improving our sadhu sangha approach to discussing Prabhupada's books, that we learn to treat each other's lights, even if they're different from our own, with respect and help each other. I have one discussion partner who he also does my website for me. His name is Bhakta Pranas. He's from Lithuania. Very intelligent devotee. He's been studying Prabhupada's books for over 20 years, but he's taking initiation very seriously. He's now trying to get initiated, but very serious devotee, very nice. And he and I, because he's a single man who's been in the movement for 20 years, and I'm a married woman who's been in the movement for 40 years. So our experiences, like I had 2 gurus who fell, he hasn't had any guru who's fallen. You know, I had experiences from a woman's perspective. He's only had experiences from a man's perspective, an unmarried man at that. So our life experiences, when we study the same, we do discussions, and our discussions are all on the website. We put them on the website just to let people see how you can disagree, but you can disagree nicely with each other. So his perspective on the same sentence is a completely different perspective from mine. He doesn't shout me down and tell me that I'm faithless and I'm just, and I don't shout him down. We try to understand each other's perspectives. And oftentimes, both of us grow. Both of us grow. I see things from my life experience, he sees things from his life experience, his perspective. And we often start disagreeing, but we don't, in the Imos method, we don't actually start fighting. We never disagree, just very different perspectives. And then by the end of the discussion, both of us have a more mature understanding. And if you want to see how you can have different perspectives and not fight, you can look at some of the discussions I do with Pranas. We discuss the CC together. And yeah, very different perspectives, but we both end up growing because we learn to reflect back the other person's perspective before sharing our own.
Excuse me, can I say something here?
Please do, Radhika Mataji.
Yeah, I'm just driving to the temple, actually. I've been listening all the time. That's very nice. I just, when you started to do this reflecting back, I realized that when I was studying social work and we did these counseling sessions and we had theory about counseling clients,
yes,
that was the tactic, you know, like, I mean,
yes,
you can say tactic that you do just like that. And I'm very happy that we do it here with each other. And I think this is something devotees have quite much to improve. You know, that I had the feeling, I hope I don't offend anybody, but I feel that the devotees might have, me including, to have a tendency to kind of categorize each other, that okay, this person is like that, and kind of maybe not listen so carefully, and this kind of, I think this kind of rephrasing and reflecting back culture is not very prominent with many devotee dealings, at least what I have experienced during these years. I mean, some do it a little bit, but yeah, and yeah, that's I'm very happy that we discuss about this, you know, really.
Thank you, Shamradhika Mataji. So you were saying that when you were studying social work, this was a very important skill that you had to practice.
Yeah.
And it's a practice, and it's a habit that's really not practiced enough amongst our devotee communities, and therefore we end up putting each other into a box. Oh, she's that kind of a person, or he's that kind. He's a fanatic, or she's loose, or he's complacent, or he's not. Yeah. We just categorize. We don't really deeply understand each other because we never really hear each other. Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, thank you. I tried to say something like that. Yeah, really good. I hope it doesn't offend anybody.
No, it was a wonderful comment. And I'll tell you something else. My husband and myself had been married for 15 years before we started doing this. And by the end of that 15 years, first of all, the 15 years was constant squabbling. And towards the end of it, we were actually thinking of maybe we should just separate. It was just so much arguing because we never actually heard each other. We talked at each other. We assumed things about each other. We just talked at each other. Since we've been doing this, I have 3 children, and they're all adults now. One of them's I'm grandmother now too. But anyway, that's besides the point. You ask any of my children, and I'd be happy to give their details to you. We don't argue anymore. It's not that we don't have differences of opinion. Sometimes we may not get hurt from each other. We immediately go into this form of discussion. We immediately just begin reflecting back. And what would have become an argument 15 years ago or 20 years ago, now doesn't become an argument. It becomes a heart-to-heart where we both deepen our understanding of each other. And the misunderstanding kind of just evaporates into the air, and we end up more deeply connected, greater empathy for each other, because we use this approach to what could have ended up into a big argument. Now, instead of separating us, our differences bring us closer together because we begin to see from the other person's perspective. So it's an approach that will really help our Grihastha ashram. And I know that we hear a lot of preaching about how Grihasthas are, out of it, we're not important. But the Grihastha ashram is the bedrock of society. It is from Grihastha ashram comes everybody else. If the Grihastha ashram is floundering, then our sannyasis will not be good. Our brahmacharis will not be good. We'll all be mentally, emotionally unstable. Grihastha ashram is so important, and this is a very good habit to help us make our Grihastha ashram more stable and more loving. Anyone else would like to make any comments?
I could make a few comments.
Yes,
I like it, the idea that it's nice to know so many viewpoints. Like you say that you are female and somebody is male, and then there's age differences and probably marriage differences and so on. I think in spiritual life, if I see myself, I see that I probably have several lives still ahead, hopefully not. But in a way, it might be helpful that I can learn from others, so I don't have to keep repetition my life so longer. So that was a nice idea what I get from your discussion.
Thank you. And I would encourage you to also add your own viewpoints. There's 2 words. I don't know if you've heard of this, Shastra Chakshush. Have you heard of this phrase? Shastra Chakshus is on the website. Prabhupada says we have to learn to see through the eyes of scripture. Shastra means scripture, Chakshush means see. We have to learn to see through the eyes of scripture. And another phrase Prabhupada liked, he said, I want my devotees to be independently thoughtful, that we learn to think for ourselves. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 34, Prabhupada says, blind following is condemned. Just to accept what someone else says without thinking for ourselves. So we have to learn to think for ourselves, but not mental speculation, not just I think in my opinion, but we have to learn to think for ourselves through the eyes of scripture. So when you come together to do this Shastra discussion, it's very important that each of us takes a turn at saying what I understand. It's nice that we hear other people's understandings too. We will grow. But it's very important that we learn to think for ourselves through the eyes of scripture. So I hope you will have the courage to also say your own understanding.
Yes, I think my biggest difference is that I'm not a philosophical person at all. But then I'm very happy to have a nice conversation, those who have those skills more.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So we have 15 minutes left, Ambika. That's if everyone else is up for 15 minutes. I was wondering if we could just go through everyone who's not and just ask, okay, we all introduced ourselves in the beginning, but what have you taken from this now? And what do you want? How do you want to go ahead? Would that be possible for us to go and ask everyone to speak a little bit about how they found this session and how from this session they plan to do anything and how they plan to go forward? It was just a nice session, that's it, finished, or it was a nice session, it's made me think like this, I plan to do this. I would love to hear from all of you.
I'm sorry for noise around. I wanted to ask, is it normal? I have from Srimad Bhagavatam 2 my favorite chapters, which I love to read again and again, and it's like a meditation for me to read them. And I think that I feel Krishna's presence when I read them. And sometimes I just love to read them without reading purports. I read many times, and then later I read Prabhupada's purport. And sometimes I get disappointed that for this text there came just such a small purport, but I actually, from that one text, it touched my heart so much, and I related, or I looked through my women and mothers and everything, all the crazy life's perspective, and I feel like, why Prabhupada wrote such a small purport? For example, I feel like I, as a woman with my experiences, I would write 5 or 10 pages purport for this text, and why there is just a few, on my opinion, so less important things when there are much more important things. And then I would love to really discuss with also some very, very philosophical thinking persons. Is it normal that I understood other things with those texts? Yeah. And is it like there can be this 64 perspectives for each text, but Prabhupada couldn't write all those perspectives. He just wrote the shortest version that purport sometimes seems like too short.
So you're saying, Carla, Prabhu, you're saying that there's 2 chapters in the Bhagavatam that you really love and that really speak to you. But some of the verses, in fact, some of your favorite verses, Prabhupada writes really short purports. Whereas if you were writing the Bhagavatam, these are the verses you would write essays on, like because those verses.
Yes.
So you're saying, is it okay to say more from the verse than Prabhupada says in the purport? Can we expand on the verse, even though Prabhupada hasn't expanded on in that way in the purport?
Yeah.
Very nice. I think if whatever we say, we have. This is one of the important things from the Improving Our Sadhu Sangha, is that if we can support it with Shastra. And this is something people initially, when I've tried to share this with devotees in England, one of the principles that most people think, oh, I'll never do this. This is too difficult. Is principle. Hang on, I'll just tell you. 14. Principle 14 is cite Shastra. Whatever we say, we should support it with Shastra. Not just I heard or such and such Swami said, or Prabhupada once said. No, where is it in Shastra? Let's bring it up. So this is if we can support our insights with Shastra, and this is something that people initially always think, I can't do this. But when I work with them, they begin to realize it's very easy. We research Shastra rather than talking and talking and talking and talking. And we're speculating. We don't know what we're talking about. If we're thinking, okay, I think it's this, then everyone in the group, with me and my husband, will stop talking for 5-10 minutes as both of us research the Veda base. You can also research using Google these days if you don't have Veda base. You can Google something, Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's quotes will come up. So yeah, we take time to research Shastra. And so if there's something in the verse that Prabhupada doesn't comment on in the verse, in the purport, if you can support what you're saying with Shastra, and if you don't know Shastra, you can learn to research Shastra, then it's still valid as long as it's supported by the Siddhanta, the conclusions of the scripture. Does that make sense? It sounds a little hard at first, especially if you don't have a lot of experience of the scriptures, but by regularly discussing with the help of another devotee, we'll begin to realize that, my God, I'm learning things and it's sticking because I'm researching it, I'm repeating it, I'm talking about it, and gradually our knowledge will increase. So yes, if you can support it with scripture. Otherwise, there's the danger we go into the realm of mental speculation, and that's okay, but we won't make spiritual advancement. We'll just remain on the I think, in my opinion, and we're not really connecting with Krishna's message. But if we can support our lights with scripture, then that's a real connection. Did you feel satisfied with that or not satisfied?
Yeah.
It seems very daunting, and that's why I suggest you do it in groups of 2 or 3, and you do it as a partnership. You help each other. You help each other research. You reflect back. You help each other. It's hard to do alone, especially if you're not very familiar with the scriptures. But if you do it with someone and you're doing it like it, for me, when I'm discussing Shastra, I feel like an archaeological adventure. What will I discover? I don't know it all, but what can I discover? And then sometimes you see something, you think, oh, maybe there's something here. Maybe I can explore this a little bit more and find something. So it can become an adventure, or it can become very daunting. But I like to see it as an adventure of discovery of Shastra and also self-discovery.
Yes, thank you. I will try research those. Yeah.
But don't start in the hard bit. Start in the beginning, the Gita, and start building your knowledge step by step. Which chapters do really touch your heart in the Bhagavatam?
Yeah, I really love. I can't do anything with that. I really love this song sung by Lord Shiva, and then also that in the 4th canto, I think it's 4th chapter, about Sati leaving her body. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. Sati touched my heart so much. I'm sorry, I can't do anything about that. There are some personalities which somehow
Those are amazing
I don't know.
prayers.
I'm a huge fan of. They somehow.
Lord Shiva's prayers that he teaches to the brothers, the beginning with P. What's the name of the brother?
Prachetas.
Prachetas. They're such important prayers. And yes, Sati's the section is such a wonderful thing. And you carry on relishing those for yourself, but go back to the beginning of the Gita and begin to put in the building blocks of your knowledge. Put in the building blocks, because those are wonderful prayers.
But yeah, this song sung by Lord Shiva, I reading to kids, and in the evening, sometimes till 1 a.m., my daughter asked me, "Mom, read Shiva's song."
Wow.
But I really love to read it just through whole song without purports.
Yeah.
And those purports I read later for myself, but the whole song, it's just I don't know. I read so many times. I read something, find something new in the song.
Carla, don't let me put you off doing this. This is a wonderful practice you're doing. And there's different kinds of reading we can do. If you've connected with something like the prayers of Lord Shiva, the Song of Lord Shiva, those are such powerful prayers. That's very beneficial for you in your life. You carry on doing that. Don't let me stop you. What I'm doing is something in addition. It's another kind of association with the scripture. What you're doing is feeding your soul, it's nourishing you, it's keeping you and your children enlivened in your Krishna consciousness. You carry on doing it. What I'm talking about, this kind of threadbare discussion, is a little different approach, but they're both can help us in different ways. So don't feel at all that I'm trying to say what you're doing isn't good. It's wonderful that you have such an attachment to these prayers. You're very fortunate.
Yeah, about sati, what really touched my heart is like what we should do when we experience Vaishnava aparadha. That fire, what we should have. Well, I feel also bad. I have also done Vaishnava aparadha, but somehow when I read about sati, I understand that's what we should do when we hear some Vaishnava aparadha.
Yeah, you're saying the special lesson you take from the experience of sati is how angry we should become.
How unbearable that you really feel like you are just the worst Shudra, that you just have to leave this body because you are the worse than Shudras, and this is I love her so much.
Thank you so much for sharing that with me. It's enlivening to see your passion and connection with those sections. Thank you. Would anyone else like to share how they felt about our session together this evening before we part, say our pranams to each other? Would anyone else like to say if it's something they'd like to try themselves? Hare Krishna, Rosa.
Hare Krishna. I would like to say something. I'm sorry about the noise going on in the farm, but I really like 2 points, and they were really actually like beneficial for me at this moment. There were the ones we were talking about just recently, searching things from Shastra yourself, like always look it up from Prabhupada's books, what he said. And the other one was that never like start to debate with anyone. So when we are like discussing with devotees, kind of, if we just like decide not to have a debating mood, then there won't be a debate, right? Because it always requires two. So this is something that really I find very useful at this moment, because I've had like in my mind, I wanted to talk about one thing with one devotee who is sharing very disturbing links in Facebook, and I wanted to kind of do something about it, because I feel that this person very Krishna conscious, but what is being shared is not good for anyone. So I feel that these 2 points were the things that were required, and also be like a personal person, you know, not to go talk things in a debating mood in Facebook, for example, or platforms like that, or talking with someone else, talking straight to the person in like talking in a small group. That's so different. Like then we can actually reciprocate with each other on a personal level. So yeah, thank you. This was very something I really needed to hear.
Thank you, Rosa. Can I reflect back? So you're saying three things you take from it. One is always go look at the Shastra yourself. Don't just take it blindly. Look at the evidence. Look at what is written in scripture yourself. Secondly, is don't approach other devotees in a debating mood. You know, even if they say something you don't agree with, you don't have to engage with them in a debating mood. If they want to start an argument, you don't have to enter into that argument. And the last thing is, if you do want to share things with a devotee, do it in small groups where there can actually be a relationship where you can actually engage and listen to each other and hear each other. So personalize it rather than just like trying to advertise it all over Facebook, our arguments. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
So Rosa, I'd like to know from you, is this something you would like to try to work on? Start trying to practice some of discussing maybe Gita. If you don't feel that you can right now because you're busy, I understand, but I just like trying to assess how many in your group would like to try to study the Improving Our Sadhu Sangha website and start trying to apply some of the principles to your discussions. Is it something you would personally like to plan to start doing, or are you too busy right now?
Yes, definitely. Those two things, I'm really interested and really, I'm really inclined to this topic, and I feel it's very relevant. But also, I'm very busy right now. But it's something that will eventually it will change. So I cannot right now. I cannot commit to anything. But I'm definitely open and like I'm here like observing how the situation will evolve, and I would like to participate in one way or another as much as I can. And I really appreciate this level of discussion what we're having. It's really, I find it very deep. Yeah.
Thank you very
so much.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Anybody else would like to share with me what before we go? If you plan to, if you found anything in today's session, something that you'd plan to apply in your life, if you plan to start trying to do these kinds of Gita discussions, would anyone else like to share with me? Okay.
I have something that I would like to share.
Please go ahead.
At the moment, I feel that the most powerful thing that I just, realized during our discussion was that when you were speaking about how we are lazy at showing our gratitude, that we pick up negative things, and that's the conditioning, that's the mode of ignorance in us.
Yeah.
So by practicing like this, like Rosa was explaining how important it is, then we come to the mode of goodness, actually, isn't it? Yeah. And then we gradually get rid of this kind of conditioning of black and white, and we learn to see this sastra chakshus.
Yes. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mataji.
My pleasure. So thank you all for your time, and thank you, Ambika, for giving me this opportunity to associate with you all. I hope that you feel there was something that will enrich you from giving these 2 hours, that you've taken something which enriches you. So may I offer my obeisances to everybody, and Vanchakalpa Trubhischa Kripa Sindhubi Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Ambika. Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hey,
Hare Krishna for everyone.
Hetkinen, täytyy saada jotenkin poistaa. Siihen tuli joku ylimääräinen laatikko tuohon kuvaruudulle.